to Debbie's back porch again. So glad to have you. We're in the middle of gardening season. Even though it's only the end of February, we're in Georgia and the gardening season has started. We're going to talk about planting potatoes. And I'm going to take you through the process of potatoes. What I'm showing you here are seed potatoes. Potatoes are not planted from seed. They're planted from other potatoes. And these are red Pontiacs, but you can get many different kinds. You can even get beautiful purple and red and different colored potatoes. These are the ones we like to grow. They seem to do well in Georgia. Now, when do you plant potatoes? You plant them after you hope, you think, and you have researched and found that all chance of freezing has passed. And that's not frost, that's freezing. Potatoes can stand a frost. They like a cooler temperature than many other things you plant. So we try to plant them very, very early. And by early, that's generally in February. We often have a second crop that we plant later in the year. So this is 5 pounds of seed potatoes. I ordered them online. You can often buy them locally. I order these online because it's difficult for me to find the red Pontiacs around here close to me. So you don't just take them and throw them in the ground. There are a couple of things we'll talk about before we actually plant. The first thing is you want certified seed potatoes. You don't want to go to the grocery store and buy potatoes and then plant them. Those have been sprayed generally with a seed retardant. And while they may eventually sprout, if you leave them too long in the bottom of your pantry, that doesn't necessarily mean they're going to produce great potatoes for you. We want potatoes that are already starting to sprout. We want potatoes that are already beginning to sprout. When I got these about 2 weeks ago, they hadn't started sprouting yet, so I waited. And we're getting some pretty good sprouts on these. We don't have to have long sprouts, but we want to make sure that they're sprouting and ready to go. So, where do you plant potatoes? You plant them in a sunny spot. When do you plant potatoes? You plant them after chance of freezing has passed. So how we prep for that is we want each potato piece that we put into ground to have at least 2 inches of potato around it. And we want to have, well, 1.5 to 2 inches. I like to go 2. And when possible, if you can plant a whole potato, that works great. A small one like this. One like this is going to need to be cut. So when we cut it, and I'll show you that, we want to make sure that there are a couple of sprouts in each piece, that we have 1.5 to 2 inches of potato in each piece. And then we'll let them, after we cut them, harden or cure for about 24 hours before we actually put them in the ground. So let me show you how I cut these. So let's sort through these. These small ones I'm going to leave, well, this one I'm going to leave whole. It's got a couple of sprouts. It's not too big. This one I'll cut in half, so let's see. I can cut this. I've got sprouts there and sprouts there. I can cut this right through the middle and have some potato to actually provide nutrients, and sprouts on both sides. It's going to turn these upside down. Here's another one that will get cut in half, and I want to cut it so that I have good sprouts on both halves. And I'm turning these upside down. So I'm going to go, oh, here's a big one. I'll get 3 pieces out of this. I'm going to cut this piece with a big old sprout on it. And then here I've got sprouts kind of around. And so I'm going to cut it so that I have at least 2 sprouts on each piece. Now you might notice these potatoes have not been washed. When you get seed potatoes, they've not been washed. And I'm going to spread these out. Now, we'll plant these, weather permitting, tomorrow afternoon. I'm going to let these sit here and dry out, because if I don't, then they may mold in the garden, in the ground, before they sprout. So I'm going to let this, they'll harden off a little bit. And then we'll be ready to plant tomorrow or the next day, depending on whether or not the weather allows. I'll tell you again, you need to look for your planting zone and then check and see when it's recommended to plant potatoes. And because I'm in Georgia, I'm in 7A. I'm actually on the borderline with 7A, 7B. And so I think I'm past a freezing time. May have a frost, but I'm past a freezing time. I actually have had potatoes that were fairly large and had a freeze, and I only lost a little bit of the foliage and still got good potatoes. But you want to avoid freezing temperatures once they start growing. So here I am, February 19th, I think. So I'm about ready to plant. So I'm going to finish cutting these. I'll let them dry for about 24 hours, and then I'll meet you in the garden. Okay, well, here is our potato bed. We're going to plant these potatoes just a little bit later today. And Fred just raked a little bit of the pine straw off of it. It's been covered in pine straw. It actually had a weed treatment of horticultural vinegar, and then we covered it with a thick layer of pine straw. And if you can see, it really knocked the weeds out. And we've really been dealing with weeds since last year when we bought some compost, some cow manure composted that actually had not fully composted, and it was full of weed seeds. And we've been fighting with them. So this bed a couple of months ago was fully weeded, treated with a horticultural vinegar, and I'm going to show you that in another video. And then covered in pine straw, and it is just about ready to go. So Fred raked some of the pine straw off. If you can see, there's a lot of organic matter still in this bed. This is not bare dirt. And he will turn under just the top couple inches, because we never till. These raised beds never need tilling. And I know I'm just showing you dirt, but I want you to see, because the quality of the soil you plant potatoes in is very, very important. You need soft, friable soil. So we'll come back when we're ready to plant. Fred's going to turn a little bit of this dirt over, about 1 inch or 2, not much, because we don't really want to disturb the environment of the bed too much. So be back shortly. Well, here's our potatoes, and we're getting ready to plant them. And I know you guys think Fred and I agree on everything, but we really don't. You're getting ready to see it, because I would just stick these in the ground and he's going to measure, but we'll measure. And I'll show you these.
Hold it. No, hold it.
Hold this?
Yeah.
Okay. The reason you want a more acid soil is because potatoes are prone to potato scab, and the wrong pH in the soil can lend itself to the development of potato scab. So to prevent potato scab, you want to always buy certified disease-free potatoes and have your soil tested. And you can probably amend your soil closer to the right pH. It's also very important to rotate your crops, and we never plant potatoes in the same crop twice, the same bed twice. What you want me to do? Okay. So rotation is very important. You can buy scab-resistant potatoes. But we've had luck with potatoes growing even though our pH is off. And if your soil is, if the pH test somewhere down around 5, you may have better luck. If you can do that, that's great. If you can't, plant them. Just plant them where you've got it. Plant them where you've got the space. Plant them where you can. Make sure they get plenty of sun. The other thing about potatoes is you don't really need to water them much until they start to form tubers. And you can watch for blooms. They don't always bloom, but they'll usually have at least 1 or 2 blooms. And you know when they're blooming that they're forming tubers. And when they start doing that, you want to water them pretty regularly, a couple times a week. Soak them good. Until then, you don't want to keep them soaked. Probably you'll get enough rain. If you don't get enough rain, water them about once a week. They can mold, they can get waterlogged and give you nothing. So you water heavily when they're trying to make big potatoes, and not until then. So here is one of our potatoes, and hold on, I took my glove off. You want to place them about 4 inches down. And you want the eye, the sprouted part, to be up. And I'm not packing the dirt in really tight. I'm just covering them. Yeah. There's our little sprout sticking up, and cover it. Sprout sticking up, and cover it. We'll finish planting this bed, and then I'll come back and show you the next step. Okay? We have the bed full now. We have 3 rows. They're a little over a foot apart, and we've got them about 4 inches deep. And from this point, you have some choices to make. We mulch ours pretty heavily now. And then when they grow up through that mulch, we will add some more soil mixed with compost to build them up. If you'll see, this bed is not totally to the top. It's not filled totally to the top. And as the potatoes grow, we'll add the mulch, give them more room to grow, and help keep the soil around them aerated so that they'll be easier to dig and so that they'll grow bigger. Because if you have compacted soil or if you have rocks or anything in your soil, your potatoes are going to be either very small and stunted or very deformed. So Fred's getting ready to fill this bed full of straw to mulch it, and we'll be right back. here you go. Our potatoes are all planted, put to bed, covered in straw. The straw is for a couple reasons. One is to hold moisture. One is to confound the squirrels who keep wanting to dig everything we plant. And the other thing is to keep down weeds. But we could use pine straw also, or you could use chopped leaves. I wouldn't use wood mulch on this, only because it's bigger pieces. If you had some fine wood mulch, you can. We won't water these tonight because it's been raining off and on all day, and it's going to rain hard tonight. So that'll be enough water for them. And I'm going to check back in a month or so to let you show how they're going. But for now, thank you for joining us on Debbie's Back Porch. So glad you could join us, and I hope to see you again tomorrow.